For 5 weeks, NASCAR stars from around the world are here to race. This is eNASCAR International.
Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the first race of the 2022 D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports, the Quick Wick 60, live from iRacing's virtual Homestead-Miami Speedway in Homestead, Florida. Thanks, Pike here, alongside Kenneth and Ryan Bauer, producing all of the shots this afternoon, and cameras, as always, provided by Dougie Beard. Welcome to some more international racing. Kenneth Bueno, some new personalities that you might not necessarily have seen if you watch the NASCAR National Touring Series. This afternoon, we've got drivers from 4 different series, all part of the NASCAR Roots program. We've got drivers from the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, the NASCAR Peak Mexico Series, the NASCAR Pinty Series out of Canada, and select drivers from NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program, including some drivers from this year's ARCA Menards Series. So it should be a lot of fun to see how they get after it.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be a lot of fun, James. And usually in the U.S., we tout the heroes of the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, but there is so much more to just those 3 series across the United States. All around the world, all of these drivers, wherever they race in each respective series from every different country across the entire globe, you can find the same heroes and how good they are as race car drivers. So it's going to be great to see a second season return for eNASCAR International and have more drivers, a 5-race schedule. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have so much diversity, and it's going to be a blast to cover.
There's a lot of diversity in the schedule as well, which we'll take a look at here. We'll go to some of the tracks that sort of bounce between some of the series featured in this international series. We start today with the oval at Homestead-Miami Speedway. Then we head to a NASCAR Pinty Series track in Canada. Next week, we'll go to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Week 3 will feature a track out of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Circuit Zolder out of Belgium. Then we head to the road course at Daytona International Speedway and finish off on the oval at Phoenix Raceway on February the 5th. So a month's worth of racing, all here on Saturdays on iRacing's channels at eNASCAR.com/live, as we now take a look at Homestead-Miami Speedway proper. And Kenneth Bueno, you're a South Florida native, so no better person suited to take us through this oval.
This is a hometown track of mine, but it's a staple in NASCAR racing. This was built all the way back in 1995 as a recuperation effort for the city of Homestead. Promoter Ralph Sanchez decided this venue here would be a great place, would be a great start to rebound after Hurricane Andrew. It is a beautiful 1.5 mile, 2.414 kilometer oval with 18 to 20 degrees progressive in the corners, which means you're going to see drivers on the inside on the white line. You're going to see drivers tucked up to the outside safer barrier. For every bit of speed they can get, only 5 degrees on the straights, and the current configuration we have is from 2003, where they added the banking. Used to have a flatter track before that, and then we had an Indianapolis style oval to begin the entire history. So it's a beautiful track. The sun sets over the horizon right there in turn 1. Drivers are going to have a lot of fun at this track.
This afternoon, we'll go for 60 laps, 90 miles, just under 150 kilometers. Pit road speed is 37 miles an hour. Your window, anywhere from 29 to 32 laps, so you can expect 1 pit stop at least. And it's standard weather conditions, as always. The default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2022, right around 5 p.m. Eastern local time. Air temp 78 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 104 degrees Fahrenheit, winds headed to the north at 2 miles an hour, and humidity of 56%. Let's take a look at the starting grid for this first race in the D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series powered by Digital Motorsports. It's the hometown man, Nick Sanchez, who sets a lap at 33.682 seconds to take the pole over Canada's Trayton Lapsovitz. Raja Karuth, teammate in the Drive for Diversity with Sanchez, starts in 3rd alongside Victor Barradas Jr. Giorgio Maggi is your top Euro Series qualifier. He'll start alongside Alex de Alba, who rolls off from 6th.
Aaron Cosio of the Peak Mexico Series will start inside row 4 with German Tobias Downhauer of the Reland Euro Series to his outside. You'll find driver diversity driver Justin Campbell and Simon Pilot. Remember, Pilot was one of the staple drivers in last season's eNASCAR International Tour. Miguel Gomez and Diego Ortiz. James round out the top 12.
Ed Cosio. Brother Aaron will start from the 13th position. Alongside him in row 7 will be Ulysses Del Sol, Davide Dallara, and Paul Jouffreau, who has experience in this series from last year, roll off in row 8. Row 9 belongs to former NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series champion Alon Day and Gordon Barnes out of the United Kingdom.
Canadian racing superstar Alex Tagliani will start inside row 10 with Leonardo Colavita, the Italian driver, on the outside in that 10th row. Yevgen Sokolovsky and Andres Perez de Lara in the 22 will round out row 11 before you find Jocelyn Fecteau of the Pinty Series and Vladimir Ortiz on the outside.
Final 2 drivers to roll off will be Federico Gutierrez and Massimiliano Lanza to complete row 13. 26 cars that will take the green flag in this first race of 5 in this D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Another look there at the weather conditions that we just told you about a few moments ago. Not much change in the sim within a minute. We're a minute closer to 5. Officially, it's 4:52 p.m. in sim local time on May 15th, 2022. So, definitely a warm race to kick off this series, but lots of fun as some of the best from Mexico, Canada, and Europe, along with the drive for diversity, will get after it here over the course of 60 laps as Barney the Flagman unfurls the green flag, and we are underway with the Quick Week 60 and the 2022 D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Nick Sanchez, the hometown driver out of the Miami area, a Cuban-American driver, is the first driver to lead a lap on an oval in the history of this D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Of course, last season there were 3 races that were all on road courses, so this is the first oval that they've had a chance to tackle. And maybe not a surprise that 3 drivers who have more oval experience than most are leading the pack in Sanchez, Raja Caruth, and Trayton Lapsovich as we get on board with Simon Pilot, who's just outside of the top 10.
Yeah, no surprise, James, that the oval drivers on the sim are doing good on an oval tonight, but this is definitely a different look. I mean, you mentioned the 3-race series last season, that it was only road courses. We're going to have a lot of road courses in this season, no doubt, as well, but when you add in Homestead-Miami Speedway, Phoenix Raceway, 2 very unique ovals on the NASCAR United States calendar, it really throws the drivers off for a different ride and forces them to adapt to this style of racing as you ride on board with Raja Caruth right now, who's moved into second after starting in the top 3. Everybody so far, James, has single filed out. Saw a couple hit the outside lane. I saw Miguel Gomez in the 46. His Camaro was trying to test out that 3rd lane, but for the most part, everybody filing in on that second groove just above that white line.
I think your benchmark here probably is going to be what we saw in the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series a few months ago when they were here at Homestead-Miami Speedway with these cars, which are from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, by the way. We saw a lot of drivers get down to that inside lane and ride there very quickly. There was not as much side-by-side racing as we thought there might be, especially because of progressive banking, as you get a good look at Diego Ortiz's setup. So a lot of these drivers up front have already found their way to what will act as the inside groove, which is actually about a lane up from the white line that it's the apron on this racetrack. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, some of these drivers who might not have as much experience on the oval are still side-by-side, still racing for position, and putting on a pretty good show for us as we go on board with Alex Tagliani, who may have more real-world experience than anyone else in this field.
And Tagliani is a driver who has raced in NASCAR, in the NASCAR Nationwide Series when it was called, the NASCAR Series in the United States. So he's got a bit of experience. IndyCar, he's got experience in that as well. And I remember IndyCar really back in the 90s. They used to run at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. Granted, it was a different look at the Homestead Speedway just because there wasn't as much banking in the corners, but you had a very interesting track, sort of the same layout, just without the banking. So Tagliani definitely working with the experience, and we have a crash near the rear. That's Alon Day in the 21 machine. Seems as though he's got heavy damage. No caution on the track. He's right in the high line in 3 and 4. We'll see exactly what happened here.
Tough break for the Israeli driver, who I think may have gotten a little bit of help. We'll take a look at the replay here, but yeah, just a little bit of contact and a hook over into turn 1 and heavy damage for Day, whose chances of winning this quick 60 have gone by the wayside very quickly. We'll get a good look at the rest of the field. See, just a little bit further back there, see if we can go back towards P9, P10. That's where Jake Cosio and Miguel Gomez are fighting. That's a NASCAR Whelen Euro Series driver fighting a NASCAR Peak Mexico Series driver as we go on board with another Peak Mexico Series driver, Diego Ortiz.
And he's right now single file, and right now everybody, I think James, wants to worry about the tires. Of course, you mentioned the weather before we got started here in round number 1, the quick 60, and it was over 100 degrees. So everybody wants to make sure they can keep their Goodyear Eagles underneath them, because these NASCAR Xfinity Series cars with about 650 horsepower underneath the hood and a very low downforce setup, you're going to see everybody trying to make sure that they can keep their car straight, because if you put a little bit too much gas on this very hot surface here at Homestead, your car is going to start to slip, it's going to start to slide, and any little bit of yaw in that race car off of the corner is going to suffer with the tire just a little bit, which means your performance is going to fall off, your speed is also going to scrub as well. So while everybody goes down, they want to be really, really careful on the gas, making sure they don't slip their cars as much. And with this surface, like I mentioned, it's a little bit tough to go everywhere around as you ride on board with Victor Morales Jr., who James has a very interesting setup on his rig.
Worth noting there, you can see it in the bottom right corner of your screen that he's got a Formula-style rim, which you don't necessarily see all the time on ovals, but that's a driver preference thing more than anything else, and we've seen drivers here in the United States use a Formula-style rim. I think of Bobby Zielinski in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series on road courses, but for those who run road courses, more often than not, you're going to see more of that sort of square shape and less of the round circle that we normally see on a lot of ovals and with most drivers in NASCAR's National Touring Series here in the United States, as we now go on board with another Peak NASCAR Mexico Series driver, Alex Alba.
And as he works to the inside, everybody mostly single file. So a little bit of a battle for about P11 on the racetrack. Diego Ortiz in his number 6 Toyota Supra was trying to fight off former winner in this year eNASCAR International Series, Simon Pilot, the driver there of the Whelen Euro Series, trying to make his work on the inside. There's a look at his rig as he goes straight into turn 1, just behind in traffic, and he tried to make the inside work, got a little bit tight off the corner, gave Ortiz the run off of the exit, and so Pilot will have a little bit of a struggle here trying to get around. He's most likely going to have to defend against Davide Dallara in the 90 machine, just not too far behind. So we'll see them most likely crunch up within each other. But for the moment, James, I think everybody knows it's not the longest race in the world, but it's still a 60-lap affair. Still got to get some distance, so everybody really wants to make sure that they can keep their cars as conservative as possible as Miguel Gomez goes for an inside move.
Gomez, who has a, shall we say, Iberian name, but is not actually from the Peak Mexico Series. He actually hails out of Lisbon, capital of Portugal, and is a NASCAR Whelen Euro Series driver. So a fun little fact there, sort of delineates him, separates him from everybody else in the series. And I feel like we've seen those colors somewhere before, Kenneth?
Maybe in a theater somewhere, not too long ago.
From Tom Cruise guy. I mean, shoot, you could almost call Gomez a dead ringer for Tom Cruise back in 1990, but we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Currently running in 8th position, and you can see, A, he's got an oval-style circular rim that he's racing with. B, you get the sense just looking at him here that he's just trying to figure out what the best line is to take. Just trying to watch some of the drivers ahead of him. Doesn't necessarily seem frustrated, doesn't necessarily seem frazzled, just trying to figure this style of racing out. Because again, a lot of these drivers, and especially those who come from the Euro Series, aren't going to have as much experience on an oval as some of the drivers from the Peak Mexico Series and Pinty Series in Canada, or some of the drivers from the Driver Diversity Program running the Mark Menard Series, as we go to a Pinty Series driver now. This is Trayton Lapsovitz out of Grimsby, Ontario.
And Train Lapsevich, he's had a lot of experience, the Canadian, in the iRacing oval scene. I remember seeing him in the All-American Esports 400 a couple of months ago. He did rather well in the super late models at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. So I don't think there's much of a surprise that him, along with Rev Racing drivers Nick Sanchez and Raja Caruth, are there in first and third, all of them making sure they can spread themselves away from the rest of the field. But you're right, there is a learning curve, James, with many of these competitors here in this series. And I think race number 2, race 3, race 4 isn't going to be the problem for them. It's just going to be race 1 and the final race at Phoenix Raceway, just learning how you can master these types of ovals, because there are oval competition outside of the US, but it's not on tracks like Homestead or like Phoenix. These are only exclusive to United States competition. So it is just a huge learning curve to try and understand where the fastest lane is, where you can use up your stuff, where you can be a little more tight or a little bit timid on entry or on exit, where you can learn as much as you can from this car track combo, which we've seen as a staple of NASCAR racing for a long time. It's just a lot of these drivers got to get a little used to it, and it seems as though they've done a good job so far.
Here's a driver who's announced some big plans for 2022. Raja Caruth out of NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program in Washington, D.C. He's got the Max Siegel colors on board his Chevy Camaro. He'll be running in the ARCA Menard Series this year, but he's also going to be racing with Alpha Prime Racing, the Cesar Baccarella and Tommy Joe Martins-led outfit in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for a handful of races in 2022. This is a year where I feel like Raja's career really could take off big time. He's getting a lot of big opportunities, worked very hard to get to him, and it should be fun to see what he comes up with.
And also, I think great to see that he's using the Xfinity Series car a lot on this service. He's used it for a long time, even well before that opportunity with Alpha Prime Racing in 2022. But to have more experience, to race this car more often in the sim could potentially help him, who knows, in 2022 when he actually steps on track in real life. And now here he comes with a heap of momentum off of turn 4. The DTLR DC machine, Max Siegel colors will go to the inside, and a quick pass in turn 1 and 2. Caruth able to get back to P2.
A quick pass around the quick whip car. See what I did there?
Oh, man.
Should I go see?
We're in for a long race.
Yeah, I figured we are. But yeah, no. And I think it's worth noting that Raja's got tons of experience, because that's how he got his start. He started his racing career on iRacing, driving the cars from Class A, Class B, and Class C, as we get a look at Justin Campbell, teammate in the Drive for Diversity program. And it was his prowess in Class A, B, and C that got him a ride at the Summer Shootout, that got him a ride in the ARCA Menard Series that has sort of led to this. But it started here in the sim, so interesting story for Raja Caruth. If you listen to Justin Campbell's onboard, though, let's take our ears and perk them up and watch as he goes down the straightaway, because as he comes out of the corner, he's checking up now, trying to make sure he doesn't hit anybody. But just listen to him as he enters. You can hear that ever so slightly. He's clutching on corner entry and trying to hang on to the car just as well. But sounds like then he's trying to save a little bit of fuel, trying to stretch this just a little bit more so that he can make it towards the end. If you run full throttle, you might not be able to go all the way. The short end of the fuel window is 29 laps. Add that twice over, that's 58. We have 60 that we're running, so you might have to be, conscious of that a little bit, Kenneth. But if you save a little bit in some places, then go, you should be able to go to the end. But it's just enough to where these drivers can't outright go all the time. They're going to have to be very careful. We're seeing a lot of drivers struggle with ill handling and loose race cars in particular. Jack Cosio, no exception.
Yeah, and of course, with the hot track temp, it's obviously no surprise that we're seeing everybody loose, as the 50 of Downhauer goes straight for the middle. It was the 51 of Cosio that went directly to the outside, made it 3 for just a bit, and it's going to allow Justin Campbell to get back in this fight. But, I mean, you're right there. We're talking about sort of the fuel window between these NASCAR Xfinity Series cars and just how far they can stretch it. I think with Campbell, he's just saving just that little bit so that he can understand on the black box there in the bottom right on iRacing Sim, he can make it all the way. He has enough fuel just in case he needs it to go to the checkered flag here in this quick 60. So I think it's just a little bit of work there, not too much in terms of the extension on the fuel saving method, but it is still necessary in order to get to the end. Now things are starting to really pack up here, James. They're coming across another car here all the way. They were about 4 wide all the way through the back straightaway. It's a lap car and big contact there. The 8 machine goes around. I'm not sure whether we're going to have a caution, but that's Simon Pilot, the Belgian machine, in the inside wall.
It is indeed Pilot, and we do indeed get our first yellow flag of the afternoon. We'll see how this all panned out. Pilot, I think, had a little bit of damage before this incident even, or it might have been the car ahead of him. Couldn't total tell. Actually, no, take that back. It was that pink and green machine, so you can't quite tell who that is exactly, but they tried to go 4 wide, trying to find room. I believe that might have been, actually, I think that was the number 1 of Vladimiros Zitsartsis. So those two running into each other. All 4 lanes getting clogged up on the back straightaway, and Pilot being the one that ends up going down into the infield and in trouble. That was a big shunt there on the left rear of his machine.
Yeah, you see the contact there, even extra to the inside wall, but I think in oval racing, that's the worst place, no doubt, to catch a lap car. You do not want to catch a lap car at the exit of the corner, no less in a battle with somebody else for running order position. So unfortunately for Pilot, he's going to have to assess this damage. We'll see how long he ends up down pit road to fix all of the crinkles on his Chevrolet Camaro. But nonetheless, James, we have everybody on pit road. Nick Sanchez, Raja Karuth, Trayden Lapsevich among the leaders to come down for service. Everyone's going to go most likely 4 tires in fuel. This is going to top off to get to the end.
Everybody coming down pit road here, and everybody coming in for service. I would assume 4 tires in fuel, but now this becomes interesting because even if you pit all the way here and get everything refilled, as I suspect most drivers will, you're not going to have enough to make it to the end. You're going to be a few laps short. So, for the Justin Campbells, you sort of get bit for saving fuel early here, but you also know your game plan going into this next green flag run. If, in fact, we go green the rest of the way, we're saving fuel a little bit. So we'll come back and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the other side of this break. You're watching coverage of the Quick Week 60 season opener for the 2022 D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports on Podium Esports.
When I hit the wall, this thing shook like crazy. I have experienced that in real life, so I can compare.
I tend to choose rally games that are really putting the actuators through their paces, and they've been holding up really well.
That's exactly how it is in real life. That's the coolest part.
This is for the win. Still 4 abreast into the braking zone. This is sensational racing. And getting ready to cross. He goes around the outside, but it's not enough.
And for a way by it all.
Gonna come back at him. It's gonna be a race to the line. Does he have enough?
Welcome back to coverage of the Quick Week 60, first race of 5 in the 2022 D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. James Pike and Kenneth Bueno are going to bring you all the action, and we have a fuel strategy race proper because we're about maybe 5 or 6 laps outside of the long end of the pit window, coming to lap 27 of 60 when we get the green flag. So, we could have some drivers clutching. We may see some drivers try and split this in the middle if we go green flag racing all the way, just to make sure they don't have to worry about fuel. But it will be a concern on the mind of all of our drivers as the green flag comes out. We're back underway from Homestead-Miami.
And Nick Sanchez, the Miami native, of course, already up at the front, being able to really spread himself apart. We saw the battle off of pit road. Victor Barrales in the number 39 machine was one of the drivers to kind of pierce himself into what's been sort of the top three all race long. But at this point, he's fallen back to P4. Lapsevich is back to second. Raja Karuth, who was at one point running down Sanchez, your race leader, in that opening run, he's now going to start to be a little more aggressive. Crash, though, right near the rear. We're going to find out exactly what that is. A big pileup in turn 4.
A ton of cars involved there, and I'm not sure what exactly happened. I think it was Alonde that was the first one that was signed. Maybe no, it was actually ahead of it. So there were incidents all over the place. As we'll get a good look here at how this starts. Was it Davide Delara, I believe? That might have been the first. Yes, it was. It was Delara. And we'll go on board. You'll see him get loose and hit the wall just ahead of our onboard here. And then a little bit of contact from the back as everybody checks up, and a big wreck in the middle of the corner. Delara has pulled himself behind the wall. He is out of the race.
And you'll see it here in 3 and 4. The 90 gets all out of shape because he tries to save the race car, getting loose, overcorrects, slams into the wall, comes back down the track. And as he's rolling down the progressive banking, James, everybody is kind of seeing this and being like, oh no, what's going to happen here? And everyone's going to try to get around. And fortunately, many of the leaders do. But as he rolls down the track, gets into the 51 of Jake Cosio, and then everybody tags in. Obviously, Justin Campbell being one of them in his Toyota Supra. Everybody else get collected and actually disregard Justin Campbell in his Chevrolet Camaro here. Here's a look on board from Perez de Lara. And then he goes into the outside wall. There's Campbell. And there is pretty much everybody collected in that. This pack here going into turn 3 and 4, most of them didn't make it through, to say the least.
There's nothing that Jake Cosio could have done, nothing that Andres Perez de Lara could have done, nothing that a lot of these drivers a little bit further back could have done. Tagliani had nowhere to go. Looks like, as I go through the list of drivers involved, Giorgio Maggi couldn't have done anything about it. I believe that there was some help for Alex de Alba. There was a little bit that Justin Campbell got sent into. Jocelyn Facteau was involved in this. Really feel for Paul Jouffreau, who was just riding at the back and just got clipped at the end of this. Here's a look on board Facteau's machine, and we see what he saw. But a lot of folks that just had nothing they could have done about this because it was a chain reaction and almost an accordion wreck like you see at some of the super speedways of the National Touring Series.
And of course, it's a very peculiar spot to be in. We saw with Facteau, he just really had nothing he could do in that instance because you're trying to slow down. You see the smoke coming on. You see drivers spinning around. And your first instinct is to slow down, right? To get out of it, all of it, and to make sure that your car doesn't get totaled or damaged in the mess. But while you're slowing down, others may react differently. They may go a little faster in the corner. And then obviously they see you brake all of a sudden right in front of them. They have no time to react. And then in turn, they kind of get into each other. And that's what results in sort of the domino effect that you see in many of the crashes on oval racing. This is not just for this series, it's for every series at this point, and it's just a tough thing to deal with when you have pack racing like that off of a restart.
We've hit the halfway point, so it's time to bring you our iRacing midway race break, which is always brought to you by the good folks at iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC.
Hello?
Is currently in second, Raja Karuth in third, Victor Barrales running in the fourth position, and Miguel Gomez holds P5. Aaron Cosio rides in the sixth spot, seventh belongs to Diego Ortiz. Tobias Dauenhauer holds the 8th position. 9th belongs to Leo Colavita. And Gordon Barnes completes the top 10.
Yevgen Sokolovsky in the number 48 machine is currently 11. Jojo Maggi in the 69 rounds out your current top 12. Simon Pilot has gotten repairs on his Chevrolet Camaro. He's now in 13th. Alex de Alba in the 14 car. He's in P14 with Andres Perez de Lara back in the top 15. Jocelyn Fecteau, we saw him involved in that incident in 3 and 4. He's 16th. Alex Tagliani is 17th. Justin Campbell 18th. 19th to the 51 of Jake Cosio. And Massimiliano Lanza rounds out the top 20.
Out of 5 cars in this field, Vladimir Zitsotsis, 21st, Alain Day, 22nd, Paul Juffreau rides in 23rd, Federico Gutierrez in 24th, and Davide De Laura, last car scored in the 25th position. And that concludes your first iRacing midway race break of this series, and with over 200,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Lights are off on the pace car once again. We'll get a quick restart. That yellow really might have helped a lot of drivers get closer to hitting the fuel number. Whether or not they can make it, we don't know, but a lot of those drivers will not have complained of running a few extra laps under yellow just to be able to make it to the end of this race, as the quick wait 60 is green once again from Homestead. They are single file out front, but it is a huge battle between a lot of drivers from the Pinty Series, Peak Series, and Whelen Euro Series. Out back, you've got Jake Cosio, Jocelyn Fecteau, Alex Tagliani, Justin Campbell, and Giorgio Maggi all fighting for position back here.
Yeah, everybody off of this restart really scrambling. Remember, many of them were the drivers down pit road to get their damage repairs after the recent incident in 3 and 4. This is all in an attempt, James, just to get back up to the field, just to settle themselves back in. I saw Alex de Alba and Andres Perez de Lara fighting for what was at the time P10, but at this point they have single filed out. They've gotten into their rhythm, and now here's a pass on the inside as the 48 of Sokolovsky got turned at the exit of turn, or the entrance rather, of turn 1 by Jake Cosio. Sokolovsky's able to keep it straight there. He is in the orange and blue Chevrolet Camaro. He's got a bit of damage, and you'll take a look as it happened in turn 1.
I saw that just out of the corner of my eye. I wanted to wait until the cameras got on it. But yes, contact between Sokolovsky and Cosio makes this very, very scary for some of the drivers back there going into turn 1. You see Sokolovsky tried to put the block on Cosio, but Cosio had his nose underneath him by the time they got to the corner. So Sokolovsky gets turned towards the back of the field. He goes. He's now 20th, and everyone else carries on the racetrack. You got to get on board with him. Out of Ukraine, only Ukrainian driver in this D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Motorsports, was officially out of Odessa. So, see whether or not he can charge back to the field. But for now, just hanging tight and trying to survive at the back of this field, and I think waiting for his opportunity to try and get back towards the front. We'll slide a little bit further up in this field. This is an on-board with Trayton Lapsevich, driver out of the NASCAR Pinty Series, where older brother Caden is a former champion of that series. So a winning pedigree amongst the entire Lapsevich family. And Trayton trying to run down Nick Sanchez for the race lead, who we noted here during the break was very quick in that opening stint at the beginning of the run, but didn't have a lot of speed as the run progressed. He burned his tires off relatively early compared to everybody else, as you see Lapsevich go all the way down to the inside and Sanchez block all the way to the apron to keep the NASCAR Pinty Series driver at bay. So it's an, I think, outgoing question there that's still yet to be answered, Kenneth. Does Nick Sanchez have the ability to save enough tire to maintain this sort of pace some 20 or 30 laps into it when we're near the checkered flag.
I'm not exactly sure here, James. It's an interesting point just because of that opening run. I think it told us a lot about what Sanchez has been able to do. And no doubt, Sanchez is very quick. That's why he's on the front row for this race. That's why he's been leading the most laps up to this point now, coming at 23 laps to go, 22 rather, back into turn 1. But near the end of the run, you're seeing Lapsevich, you're seeing Roger Caruth, and maybe we'll see Victor Barrales, who stepped it up over the past couple laps, get into this fight, catch up to Sanchez, and then put on the pressure. I don't think it helps here, James, that Lapsevich is right in the rearview mirror of Sanchez, because Sanchez may push it a little. Maybe he sees the driver of the 20 in the rearview mirror and is just trying to make sure that he can keep him at bay. But while he's doing that, he's pushing his car a little bit more, which in turn could lead for third, fourth, fifth, everybody on back to start to catch up over the long run. So I think Sanchez may have to play his game a little differently, although he's kind of forced in a compromising spot just because Lapsevich is right behind him, pouncing for any mistake that the two makes.
And if we take both of them into regard, do they race each other so hard that they end up burning off their tires collectively? And does it allow Caruth, Barrales, and Gomez and company to catch the leaders and make this a 5-car battle maybe, or maybe even more, for the race lead? Again, something we'll have to watch as we approach 20 laps to go here at Homestead-Miami. Looking a little bit further back, though, good battle here. Alex de Alba currently riding in the 8th position, just behind Diego Ortiz and Cosio. And this group here, they bounce between trying to figure out whether or not they want to race each other, whether or not they want to go single file. But we've seen them flip-flop between those two just about through the entirety of the race, as Nick Sanchez now slides further back.
There was a mistake there. They were catching up to a lap car, and that puts Train Lapsevich in the race lead. There's Sanchez in the Hornets nets. I believe that's Zortzitz in the outside wall. And then Sanchez got put in the most worst spot of them all, got sent through the middle of the field. And you'll see here they're catching up to the 1 in a 1 and 2. Remember, this is what caused the incident between Simon Pilot and a couple of others there out of that second corner as they were catching up. And you see them slow down right there. Sanchez gets a bit of a bump as Lapsevich got the better run in the middle of the corner. Sanchez almost got the race car up to the outside wall, luckily able to save it, but then that lost momentum, James, just brings everybody in it, and as he tries to play defense, everybody's on swarming offense, and Sanchez gets put in the middle of the Hornets nets, which allows Lapsevich up front, but Caruth has a spot for second. Barrales now in a P3.
It was the Cypriot driver, Vladimir Ziotzis, that those drivers almost got into, and it definitely shook up the leaderboard a good bit. Now, Nick Sanchez is going to have to make a charge through this field with damage to the left front of his Ford Mustang, which will be worth keeping an eye on in the closing stages of this race. But it is now Trayton Lapsevich who leads this driver out of the NASCAR 50 Series, the Quick Wit car leading the Quick Wit 60, and Nick Sanchez is parking it and pulling it behind the wall. So Sanchez is done, it would seem, and it now leaves Lapsevich and Caruth amongst that trio that have led the majority of this race from the front of the field to fight it out for P1 and P2.
Oh, it's tough for Nick Sanchez there, James. Just went off of turn 2, slowed it down, decided his night was done, and he is out of here at Homestead-Miami. Hopefully we'll see him in race number 2 in the rest of the campaign. But now that brings more players into it because Lapsevich now is in the catbird seat. What does he do in the race lead now that this is really the first time he's been in control of this race all day long? And now Caruth, who's been good on the long run, he's got the opportunity to attack. Same deal with Victor Barrales, and same deal for the Portuguese driver, Miguel Gomez. In his Chevrolet Camaro, he's got an opportunity here. He's right behind the Ford Mustang, and so everyone's single file, but no doubt, James, that little bit of contact in the middle of 1 and 2 brought everybody back into the game.
Of note, too, we talked a little bit about Gomez's rig earlier, but not necessarily a fancy wheel per se. We've seen some drivers come in with setups that, you know, if you want to, you can invest somewhere north of 5 figures into it, but you don't necessarily need that to get started in iRacing. That wheel looks as if it's probably maybe only a couple $100 or so in the United States, and that's not necessarily a huge expense in the grand scheme of things to get yourself not only in the sim, going fast. I think we've all heard the great story of Tom Jeske as you get a look at all of the drivers and their onboards in this D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. But a lot of the great stories, you think of the Tom Jeskes and Timmy Hills, some of the drivers in the National Touring Series who have run off of laptops and off of card tables and off of maybe not necessarily the most specialized of setups, and yet still find ways to be quick. And I think that's the general moral of the story with regards to Gomez's setup.
I think that's the great thing about sim racing in total, James, that you don't need the fancy setup to be one of the fastest drivers. And you mentioned two of the NASCAR veterans who use those kind of simplified setups in Majeski. And I was about to mention Timmy Hill, which brought him to victory lane in the Pro Invitational at Texas earlier in 2020. So, I mean, it doesn't require a lot of money, doesn't require a lot of the best equipment. But a lot of these drivers, remember, they're real racers. They like the sim. They like real life racing, of course, because many of it's pretty much their job. So they want to get the best equipment possible to immerse them in the experience for what it's going to feel like in real life when they go out on track and when the green flag drops in their respective series. So, I mean, sim racing, you can go so far and so little with your setup, but you can still be one of the fastest drivers out on the track. As you watch, I believe that's Perez hitting the outside wall. And now here comes Lapcevich, Caruth, and now all of the leaders coming through lap traffic, James. It hasn't been the best situations for the leaders. When they get around lap cars, we'll find out if this plays to the same story.
Officially, this is Federico Gutierrez, who goes by Fico, and he is not too far ahead of your race leaders now. Is just going to pull off down on the apron and let them go. So he just stays out of the way and lets the leaders keep the fight. I think he might have seen some of the other lap cars had gone through over the course of this race and decided to not follow the example and instead let these leaders fight it out. So it's Lapcevich, it's Caruth, it's Brownings, and Simon Pilot, who, remember, went spinning down into the infield earlier on in this race. But this is a nice job here for the driver out of Bren Laud in Belgium. Really, really solid work for him to get back up into the top 10 after all that.
And he's got the fast spare. His car is clean, and Pilot definitely wheeling his car back up to the top 10. Of course, we saw him get to victory lane earlier in the eNASCAR International Series in its first ever campaign. So Pilot definitely trying to redeem on his effort, trying to go back to the front, back to victory lane here from Homestead-Miami. And he's doing a good job so far to get 10 laps to go from Homestead, and Pilot is trying to catch up to Justin Campbell. It's a bit of a gap between the two, but they're trying to make sure they get around, as I believe Raza Caruth, indeed, here he is, poking the nose. He's been putting the pressure on Lapcevich for so long, and finally, he's got a nose ahead.
Raja Caruth has decided that it is time to go. And he now drives to the inside of Trayton Lapcevich. It's the Drive for Diversity versus the NASCAR Penty Series for the race lead. Give it to Raja Caruth out of Washington, D.C. Up to the front he goes. And now, will Morales try and follow suit? Will Gomez try and follow suit? Now that they've seen Caruth make his move, what does that do to the drivers behind Lapcevich, and how do they approach this race?
And I mentioned earlier, James, about how Lapcevich was in the catbird seat. He was waiting for second on back to come by, and finally Caruth gets to the inside, puts it on, goes to turn 3, and makes that pass complete. Lapcevich is still there, so he's still got the 13 in his crosshairs, but now he has to worry about the driver in the rear view mirror, Victor Morales, who we haven't seen really all day long, and so he might have the opportunity to step in a second, or maybe, James, step into the front if he can keep Raja Caruth ahead. There's another lap car up in front of these guys, so we'll have them clear them in a couple of moments. But Caruth so far in control in the final laps of this race. I think this is the best place to be if you're that 13.
Passing the lap machine of Massimiliano Alonso, who will stay high and out of the way of the race leaders. So we'll continue this fight for first and second and third. There's the top 4, top 5 clear of Alonso's machine. So your leaders all get around lap traffic. Beyond that, Alon Day is the next car in line, and there's probably about a pair of corners between Caruth and Day. So maybe a few laps here. Might be one more lap car these drivers have to fight before we get the checkered flag in this quick 60. But Caruth not only is up to the front, but he's clear of Lapcevich's lap times by about 1/10 of a second. It was a 35.1 to a 35.2 for Lapcevich last time by. And also of note, Morales is right there with Caruth's lap times. So first and third are both faster than second, and I would assume that the next few laps we might see Morales and Lapcevich go after it for P2.
Yeah, Caruth and Morales, James, that last time by were the only drivers in about the top 5 or so to set laps within the 35.1 second bracket. Everybody else was around 35.2s or less. And so Morales is definitely picking it up over the last laps. The question is now, James, does he have enough time to catch up to Lapcevich? Yes, The gap is very small between the two, but does he have enough time to get to him, get to the rear bumper, or to get to the inside or the outside and make this pass? Carruth, it was rather easy for him in turn 3 just because he had the pass almost made on the back straightaway, but for that 39, it may be really tough in these final laps as Lapsevich will play heavy defense here.
Lapsevich will play defense. He'll take the air off of Barales' nose, and it will make it all the more difficult to run down Rajah Carruth, who was 2/10 faster than both second and third. So you're starting to see the effects of the air between Lapsevich and Barales, as you get a good look on board there a few months ago with Justin Campbell. Here's your top 4. These are the live intervals in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It's now a half second between Carruth and Lapsevich, and then 2/10 from Lapsevich to Barales, and it was about 3/10 between Barales and Gomez.
Yeah, it's really tough at this point to really gain all the momentum. Here's a look from Campbell as he's in a battle at the moment. That is the driver of the 14, Alex de Alaba, in his machine, his Ford Mustang up to the top. And one of the first times we see a driver use the outside lane to fend off. But unfortunately for Alaba, he's going to be stuck back there and going to have to most likely fight with Leonardo Colavita in the 9 machine for P9 on the racetrack. Campbell was able to clear for 7th. We'll most likely see him continue in that spot. Maybe he can gain some more by the end. But James, here is Barales. Got a huge one off of turn 4. And underneath he'll go to Lapsevich. Back into the corner. Ford Mustang back into P2, or really into P2 for the first time this day.
Lapsevich tried to block 1 and then tried to block 2, and he just couldn't make the car wide enough, and that opened up the door on the inside for Barales to take over P2. So move Victor Barales up into the runner-up spot. Lapsevich will try and run him down, but with the way that Lapsevich is running, I wonder if that battle with Nick Sanchez may have burned off his tires more, and these drivers around him got the opportunity to save a little bit, and that's why we're seeing the distinct difference in pace. And now Lapsevich, I think, is just going to have to worry about holding off Miguel Gomez for 3rd.
And you got to also think, James, with the contact between Lapsevich and Sanchez in the middle of 1 and 2, when they were fighting for the race lead, that slowed them down significantly, killed their momentum, and so Lapsevich really had to start to rebound. He really tried to get back up to snuff, as Sanchez had already been in the middle of the field trying to get back up to P1. But with the way Barales and Rajah Carruth and even Miguel Gomez, all the drivers behind them, they didn't really have to rebound from a lack of pace or a loss of momentum. They just kept going. They saw the incident up ahead, and they've been all good. We get to the white flag. Carruth looking for the win.
One more lap to go in this quick 60, but there's also some lap traffic that Carruth might have to deal with here too, in the form of Yevgen Solokovsky and Alain Day. Whether or not he catches them before 3 and 4, we'll find out here. He's certainly inching up on the lap traffic, but I think he'll be able to stay just far away enough. And in his 4th start in the D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports of his career, it's Washington, D.C.'s Rajah Carruth from NASCAR's Drive for Diversity in the ARCA Menard Series that goes to victory lane in the season opener at Homestead-Miami Speedway.
A great run overall, James, by the DC native. Was able to get ahead, was able to suffice over the long run, and now he's got the checkered flag in hand on the first oval race of this season. What a drive, though, by Victor Barales in the 39, the Mexican driver, able to go to P2, over Lapsevich in 3rd, but a great finish nonetheless for the 13.
Brilliant drive there for Rajah Carruth, especially in the second half of this race. You see the sigh of relief there on his camera. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the post-race show. More coverage from the Quick 60 season opener for the D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports coming up on Podium Esports just after this.
When I hit the wall, this thing shook like crazy. I have experienced that in real life, so I can compare.
I tend to choose rally games that are really putting the actuators through their paces, and they've been holding up really well.
That's exactly how it is in real life. That's the coolest part.
goes around the outside, but it's not enough.
And hunting for a way by and off.
Hollander's going to come back at him. It's going to be
This is unbelievable. Oh, I can't get over how real that feels.
I didn't know what to say, really. I'm a bit shocked by that.
What a cool experience this is.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the Quick Wick 60 season opener for the D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Here's a look at your full field rundown from this afternoon's event. Raja Karuth, your race winner, ahead of Victor Baradas Jr. Trayton Latsevich finished in the third spot. We'll talk to all three of those drivers in just a few moments. Miguel Gomes finishes in fourth. Diego Ortiz completes the top five. Sixth went to Aaron Cozio. Justin Campbell brought it home in seventh for NASCAR's Drive for Diversity. Alex de Alba out of the NASCAR Pink Mexico Series comes home eighth. Leonardo Colavita finished in the ninth spot, and 10th went to the Belgian Simon Pilot.
German Tobias Downhauer in the 50 machine goes into P11. Andres Perez de Lara in the 22 rounds out the top 12, with Jake Gosio, Alex Tagliani, and Gordon Barnes rounding out the top 15. Final drivers within the top 20 include Giorgio Maggi in the 69, Yevgen Sokolovsky in the 48, Jocelyn Infecto, Massimiliano Lanza, and the 21 of Alon Day.
Final five cars in this field, or six rather. Federico Gutierrez finished in 21st. Tough break for Ramiro Ziotzis in 22nd. Nick Sanchez, after the contact from the race lead, pulled off the track. He finishes 23rd. Paul Jouffreau has had some speed in this series, but he'll have to rally back next week at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He finishes 24th. Davide De Lara and Ulysses Del Show complete your 26-car field. It is now time to bring in our race winner, a familiar face around these parts, as Raja Karuth gets the job done. And Raja, this race to me, from your perspective, felt like a race in two halves. It seemed like you weren't necessarily pushing all that hard, honestly, until about maybe lap 45 or so. But did you sort of have a sense of that? And did you sort of wait for your moment to go and maybe not push as hard earlier on in this race just to manage your tires better?
Yeah, James, I kind of just rode for the majority of the race, not even rode, just try to make sure that I wasn't slipping tires, I wasn't going harder than I needed to, just because of how the tire kind of ages and works off heat. So I wouldn't say that I went over like 80% for the whole race, just because I was really working on not slipping tires and not cranking the steering wheel too much, and being there at the end with a good amount of tire left to take advantage.
How much have you learned in that department over the course of the past 2 years or so? Because we've seen you race for a while. We've known you. There was a time when Raja Karuth was a little bit more aggressive with his tires and went a little bit harder on the front end of these runs. So how have you developed as a driver in that regard in recent years on the sim?
I think I've just gotten a little bit older, man, and kind of treated this more like real life and not always going for the 3 or 4 wide move or going for the block, because usually those are low percentage moves, right? And so I've just been really working on kind of trying to treat the sim like real life. It hasn't worked for a little bit, but now I'm kind of turning the corner and being able to draw parallels, so I can be really competitive on the sim and really use the stuff that I do on Sunday, or not Sundays, but Fridays and Saturdays, and apply it on here. With the tire that we have in ARCA, it's very temperature sensitive, so it's similar to the V7 tire, so there's some similarities in that. But to directly answer your question, man, I think I've just gotten a little bit older and have been listening to the people that are in my ear.
And how about this as a win to kick off your 2022 campaign in the sim? You've got a really, really big year, both in iRacing and in real life plan. How excited are you for what's to come?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this year, James. Not only on the sim, but like you said, in real life. I'm excited for the Podium 500 Speed Weeks. I'm excited for eNASCAR Road to Pro or Contender. I'm going to try to give that a go this year, and whatever special events that are going on iRacing. Then obviously on the real life side of stuff, competing for the ARCA Drivers Championship and making my National Series debut in the Xfinity Series with Alpha Prime Racing. So I'm really excited for this year, and to start off with a win in this series. It's awesome, and so I'm going to try to continue to put in the effort and the time just to be ready for testing next week and the rest of the Monday night series heading into Daytona for ARCA.
It'll be a lot of fun to watch you across the board. Raja, congratulations on your victory in this afternoon's Quick 60. We look forward to seeing you next week from Canadian Tire.
Thanks, James. See y'all later.
Raja Caruth, P1 this afternoon. Top driver out of the NASCAR Peak Mexico Series, and our runner-up overall this afternoon was Victor Barrales, who is with our Kenneth Bueno.
You're indeed with the 39 of Victor Barrales Jr. And Victor, what a run to the end of the race. You were kind of hanging around the top 5, top 10, but all of a sudden, near the end, you found a way to put the pressure to Train Lapsevich and make the move to second. Walk us through how you were able to do that.
Yes, so first of all, I wanted to see how these guys save their tires. I mean, I know that they are pretty good in iRacing, so I wanted to in the first stint, I wanted to see their pace. How can I do different to keep with them? And in the second stint, I think that I did better, and I think that Drayton used a little bit too much tire in that fight with Nick, so that's why at the end I was able to get second.
And of course, you were able to do so over the long run. And I want to ask you this about this race in its entirety. I mean, an oval race to start the eNASCAR International Series, not a feature in last season's campaign. So how was that to sort of get the learning curve of the oval racing out of the way for the first race this season? And walk us through how that experience was like in practice and obviously through the race with the competitors around you.
Yeah, obviously it was pretty tough. I mean, the competition is very high, as you said. I already raced with these guys, but only in road course, so I didn't know how they can do in ovals. I mean, I knew that Drayton and Reja were really good on ovals because obviously is the ride rating is really high. But no, it was really fun. It was good to see how I can do against these guys, and obviously. I'm looking forward to the next race, which is a road course, and looking to get the championship at the end of the season.
And final question I'll ask you, what is the mindset now that you have the rest of the season ahead of you and that you got the oval race out of the way? Y te preguntaré, ¿cuál es la mentalidad ahora que tienes el resto de la temporada por delante y que te quitaste la carrera de oval hoy?
That's a good Spanish. No, so... Obviously, it puts like a weight off my shoulders because I know that I can do good in the road courses, but I didn't know how good I can do in the ovals. So to see that I can be competitive in the oval as well, obviously it does put a weight off my shoulders, and looking forward to the next races for sure.
Well, from a fellow Spanish speaker to another, we'll send our congratulations, Victor, on this second place finish from Homestead-Miami. Muchas gracias por hablar con nosotros y nos vemos en Canadian Tire. We'll see you at Canadian Tire.
Muchas gracias. Abrazo.
James Pike, that is Victor Barrales Jr. in the 39, who is able to walk away in P2 tonight from the Homestead-Miami Speedway.
He can do both the languages. Kenneth Bueno is. We'll go back to standard, I guess, boring English per se. For Trayton Lapsevich out of Grimsby, Ontario, and Trayton, just take us through that battle with Nick Sanchez. It was so entertaining to watch for the middle portion of this race. What was it like fighting him for the race lead?
I thought it was just, we were racing hard for sure. I knew Raja was back there saving. At the time, I was catching Nick so fast. I just wanted to get to the front. I wanted that clean air because I felt like there was a little bit of push being in dirty air, and I saw that in the first stint. So want to get out front as much as I can, and then he started blocking me there, and I can't say I wasn't expecting, but I didn't know we were going to be racing like that. I thought with 25 laps to go and Raja back there saving, I thought we'd probably race each other a little cleaner, save some tire, and we had a really good lead on Raja at the time too, so I thought that was something that we might be able to maintain if we just got single file in racing.
How hard was the fall off to manage, and did it surprise you that the tires just completely went away? It looked like the way they did in the final 5 laps.
The fall off was pretty rough. You really had to conserve the entry and baby it off the corner too, because it was getting a little tight center loose off, especially in the long run. I feel like I did probably a poor job of saving my tires, but like I said, I really wanted to get to lead, and I wanted to get that clean air, and at the time I just really think that we had enough margin on Raja to be able to maintain that to the end.
You're not the only driver here that's going to have a lot of big plans, both in real life and in the sim. So this too, in the same way that it is for a lot of these drivers, a nice springboard to what you're going to do, especially in the NASCAR Pinty Series in 2021. How excited are you for your plans, both in sim and in real life?
It's all really exciting. I mean, RGC Sports and Quick have given me an awesome opportunity in 2021, and we just came short of that first win. We achieved a lot, and we'll see what our plans are moving into 2022 here. I think it's all looking really good though. Inside the sim, it's been a lot of fun building for Reaper Speed Lab, and not only working on the short track stuff like I'm used to, but also coming up to racing the Xfinity cars at Homestead here. It's something that gets me outside of my comfort level a bit, and something to look forward to in the future as well.
We'll keep our eyes peeled on all that you had to offer, and of course in this D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series. But for now, Trayton, congratulations on your 3rd place finish in the Quick Week 60, and we'll see you from your home track in this series, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, next Saturday.
Thanks, guys.
No doubt that Trayton Lapcevich is going to be looking forward to our first Canadian track in this series, as are all the other drivers of the eNASCAR, or rather the NASCAR Pinty Series, is the D-Box eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. There we go, got it right. Heads to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Same time, same place, same day of the week. Just 1 week later, we'll be there Saturday, January 15th. And it's also our first road course of the series as well. So it may suit some of the drivers of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series, maybe a little bit better than what we saw today here from Homestead-Miami, can it? So much fun that we can talk about, so much that we can discuss just off this first race, Kenneth. But road course racing next week at Canadian Tire should be incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and we've seen the finishes, we've seen the racing at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, not only from the Pinty Series size and the Canadians, but through the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. They've had great races at Canadian Tire. Unfortunately, within the past year, they haven't been able to go back to Canada to go back for the green flag at that track, but to see it back on the virtual side and to see it make its feature in the eNASCAR International Series is going to be a lot of fun. It's a very technical racetrack. You've got a lot of elevation changes. You've got a lot of very interesting corners that with this car is going to make things pretty difficult, I'd say, because usually on the NASCAR side, you're used to running the trucks, and that is a completely different car than the Xfinity Series cars will have next Saturday. So that'll be an amazing opportunity for everybody to learn that combo in the practice sessions. But also, I mean, for the rest of the series, it's going to be back to what they're used to, road course racing at its best.
Until the season finale at Phoenix on February 5th. But Canadian Tire, then Zolder, then Daytona, then Phoenix. Entertainment all the way, and all of it here on iRacing's Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and eNASCAR.com/live. A tremendous amount of people to thank for making this possible. Big thanks to our partners at eNASCAR for their end of the organization of this series, for all the folks at iRacing that make it happen. Drew Adamson, Sean Ambrose, Tyler Hudson, Cisco Scaramuza, Travis Sullenberger, and Corey Vervinch. For our team at Podium Esports, that includes Gary Sexton and John Theodore. For our camera builder, Dougie Beard, our man behind all the cameras this afternoon, Justin Prince, and for the team on the broadcast, our producer, Ryan Bauer, and my colleague in the booth, Kenneth Bueno, I am James Bryant. Thank you so much for watching our coverage of the Quick Week 60 season opener for the 2022 eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by D-Box and Digital Motorsports. We look forward to seeing you 1 week from today from iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
Just this morning, a side of me open that I never noticed. We are the future, ride for the culture. Put my dirty clothes on the lines of a notebook. Never hide from exposure, show you nobody is unbroken.